So tonight, it's basically we're going to talk about kind of mingling and networking and etiquette during that whole process. We're going to talk, first of all, about the 7 seconds to success. Then we're going to talk about conversation basics, you know, how to make small talk. I know it's really one of the top fears of people in the United States is walking into a room of people that they don't know and having to make conversation with a stranger. That's not hard for me, but it's you know, paralyzing for some people. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that. And then we're going to talk about, you know, you're going to find yourself, especially in the fall, you will receive an exclusive invitation to the Wall Street Initiative. Not sure of when the dates are exactly. Do you know the dates yet?
I was hearing around sometime in May or June.
Oh, I thought we were going to have one each semester.
Well,
maybe.
Maybe.
Okay.
One in the fall, but they were still talking about doing one this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to happen, but there was some talk.
Well, if they have one this year, you will definitely get an invitation, and to one in the fall, too. And that's a huge reception with hundreds and hundreds of 6,000 people, Wall Street people, and other New York alums are invited to that. So it's a huge networking opportunity. And there's food and drink and all that sort of stuff. So it's, for some of you, it could be an awkward situation, but I want you to make the most of it, obviously, because that's why you're here. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, too. Okay, first thing we're going to do is talk about the 7 seconds to success. Maybe you've heard this before, maybe not, but you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And there could not be a statement more accurate on the planet than that. You get one shot, and it usually takes about 7 seconds. So we've come up with the rule of 12, key ways to create a positive impression. If you can remember this, the first 12 words you say should include the words thank you. The first 12 steps you take should be those of confidence. You can't imagine how many of you have actually come into my office and told me that you want a career on Wall Street, and I'm thinking to myself, holy smokes, you seem like you're afraid of me. What are you going to do? Are you going to be intimidated when you get in front of, you know, somebody who's really starched and pressed and polished? So you've got to walk into a situation with confidence and poise. You've got to be able to carry yourself. You've got to be able to look like you have Wall Street potential. The first 12 inches from your head down should be impeccably groomed, because that's where people are going to focus on. But the last 12 inches from the floor up should also be well maintained. That basically means look at yourself before you go out of the room or out of your house from top to bottom. Don't wear too much makeup. Don't wear too much dangly jewelry. Don't over-fragrance yourself. I don't care whether you're a man or a woman. Make sure you wear deodorant. Make sure your shoes are shined. Seriously, if everything else is perfect, would you agree? You wear white socks, you're dead. And this actually happened one time. One of the MBA students.
Oh, it happens every year,
yeah,
even with MBA students. And I've seen some of these folks just write you off if your shoes aren't shined.
Yep.
Or sometimes it gets as picky as the kinds of shoes. You know, they don't like square toes. They think you should wear cap toe shoes for men.
Yeah, something more conservative. Really, I mean, anything, if you have to think to yourself, and just use this as a rule of thumb, if you have to think, does this look okay? Then guess what? It probably doesn't. If you're second-guessing yourself, there's every reason to believe that someone else is going to be having that same opinion of you. So think about these things, the rule of 12. Again, I can't tell you how important confidence is. If you don't walk into the room acting like you believe in yourself, they're never going to buy it, no matter what you say. You could be the smartest person on the planet, but if you're, you know, looking like this, like you don't believe it yourself, they're not going to believe you. I've had to work with a lot of students on building their self-esteem, and now they're really successful. I don't know if you know, do any of you know Trevor Walter? Anybody know Trevor? Trevor used to be so backward and so shy, and we read books, I made him read books, and I really worked with him on building his confidence, and now you know, he's never told me exactly how much he's worth, but I think he's a multimillionaire, and he's not even 30 years old yet. So I'm not saying it's I made Trevor Walter what he is today, but I didn't do that. But I did help him.
Those books you read him.
It's all the books I read him, yeah. But I did help him convey an air of confidence. I believe that. You got to smile. I mean, if you don't believe it yourself, they're not going to believe it either. You smile says you have confidence in yourself. You walk into the room, you act like you're supposed to be there. My mom always says, I don't know how you get away with it. How do you work the room like that? I said, just act like I'm supposed to be there, like it's my party, even if it isn't. But in your head, you have to think that. Walk quickly, hold your head high. Nobody wants to talk to anybody who's, kind of walking around like this. Sing your theme song. A couple years ago, there was a show called Ally McBeal. Anybody know that show? Anybody watch that show? It was a good show, wasn't it? Well, every time Ally needed a shot of confidence, she'd have a song in her head. It was usually some sort of Barry White song, real bouncy, real upbeat song. But whatever your song is, if you hear a song on the radio and it makes you feel good, when you're in a situation where you're a nervous wreck like that, think of your theme song. Think of the song that makes you feel good. And honestly, I mean, it's like a brain trick, but it will help you relax. You got to believe in yourself. If you don't believe it, they're never going to believe it. Ever, ever, ever. And I tell this to students a lot of times before you go into an interview. To convey confidence, if you don't have it, you got to get it. But you have to visualize yourself in the situation. That's how you believe you have it. You start thinking, I can do this. This could be me sitting across from the table. And even go so far as to think, in a few years, that will be me sitting across the table. I will be the person asking the questions. And trust me, most of the people who do come here, I mean, look at Joe. He was here. Alex, I'm sure, will be here next year. Morgan will be here. These people go, and they're going to come back. So you've got to visualize yourself being that kind of a success story. You're going to come back, too. Convey enthusiasm, interest, and a sense of energy. When somebody walks in the room and they're just, kind of walking really slowly and they're looking really bored and uninterested. Do you want to talk to them? If you see somebody at a party or a dance and they're standing over in the corner and they're not talking to anybody, you want to talk to them? Right. Nobody does. That's why they're there. But you've got to be one of those people that just exudes energy because people want to talk to people who are energetic and fun.
Let me just add, as far as interest, because I think a lot of people kind of wonder, what do I talk about with these people?
Yeah.
And it can be things fun. If it's football season and they're a Penn State alum, it can be about football. Certainly it can be what's going on in the marketplace. I mean, what was one of the big headlines today? Anybody see a big merger that was announced in the last day or two?
I know. Mars.
Yeah. It could be that. Hey, what do you think about Mars and Wrigley getting together? Is that a good deal, bad deal? Could be, hey, if it's current events right now, boy, how have things changed down here since the whole kind of blow-up of Bear Stearns?
Right.
What's kind of been going on down here?
Yeah.
It does two things. It gets them talking, kind of gets them talking about their opinion, but you're also asking questions about kind of the profession.
Yeah. And it's their industry, it's their profession, so they're going to know something about it, so they're going to want to talk about it. It's easier than you think, and we're going to get into that in a little more depth in a minute. Always be positive. Always be positive. I was talking to a young kid today who his mom said, oh, could you talk to him? He needs a summer job, yada, yada, yada. And he was in hotel restaurant management. And I said, oh, so, I know a lot of restaurant owners in the area. And if you want to be a server somewhere, I have some connections I can turn you. And he went off on this whole, like, I don't want to do that. I used to work at, what's that place at the mall? Godfrey's? Godfrey's or Gadsby? Like what's it called? No.
Garfield's.
Garfield's, yeah. It's called Garfield's. And he was like, rant. The people never gave me tips, and they're stupid people that you don't want to talk to, and, yada, yada. And, he went on and on and on, and it was okay. It's okay. You can say that to me. I get it. But if I'm interviewing him or I'm talking to him, if I'm having a regular person and I don't know him and I'm having a conversation with him at a party and he's going, yeah, it was people were creepy and the mall's a yucky place and everybody was fat, I don't know. Everybody was cheap. Nobody tipped me. My friend had a $109 bill and they only left her 75 cents. Those are not the kinds of things you want to talk about. You don't want to talk about anything that has a negative spin. You can turn that into something funny and talk about, the subculture at the mall subculture or something like that. Without being really negative, you can be humorous. You got to be able to laugh at yourself. I'm trying to think of a situation. Can you think of any kind of situation where somebody pointed out something stupid about, yesterday, okay? my first day back at work, I walk out of my car, I walk 20 steps to the stairs, and I fall down the next 6 steps. Okay, I just go like boom, 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 boom. And I'm laying there like, you know, spread eagle, and I'm like in serious pain, and you know, some guy comes to the rescue, and I kind of got up and made a joke of it. I mean, it's embarrassing. It was embarrassing. I mean, I really got hurt, but yeah, I'm really, really hurt. But anyway, you got to be able to laugh at yourself. You have to be able to poke fun at yourself and not take things too seriously. I mean, I've seen people at receptions and parties where they're just so uptight. They're just so uptight. Remember Jonathan Schaefer? Oh, man. Just never wanted to talk to this guy. He was so negative, and he just took himself really seriously. He just had bad energy around. You just didn't want to talk to him. So you want to be the exact opposite of that. And here's another thing. You know, a lot of people are intimidated by recruiters. A lot of people are intimidated by celebrities. My brother used to run a professional golf tournament, and he used to run a lot. He ran the Michael Jordan Celebrity Classic, and so I got to work there. Unfortunately, that was the year Michael Jordan's dad was killed, murdered, so he wasn't there. But all these other big celebrities were soap opera stars, TV stars. I mean, I'm trying to think who else. A lot of people were there, big celebrities. And you know, at first I was intimidated until I was around them for a couple of days, and then I realized that they're just regular people like everybody else. You know, they want to exchange their shoes, or their shirt was the wrong size, or do I know how to get to the nearest, you know, whatchamacallit. Just never assume that because somebody is better looking or at a higher level than you, that they're better than you. They're just people. They're just regular people. That's going to help you have confidence if you have that sort of, you know, image in your head that somebody's better than you because they're cute or they're smart or they're rich or they're famous. Not true. These are the kinds of things that can give people a really bad first impression. Giggling. I mean, as I said, it's okay to laugh at yourself and it's okay to be humorous, but if you're that giggly kind of person, did anybody watch The Bachelor last night? Oh, come on. Seriously, no one else is into reality TV? Anyway, I watched The Bachelor, and I knew who was going to get the boot because she bugged me. She just kept giggling and saying like this, like that. I wanted to be like this. I wanted like 28 times. Really turned me off, and she was so giggly, it was annoying. It's a faux pas. You just don't want to do it. Hand gestures. Now, a lot of people talk with their hands, me included, but, and I can remember one of the things Trevor did was he would talk with his hands, but it would be these kind of like, they would just sort of burst out of nowhere. It wasn't like it was an expression of something. It'd be like he's just sitting there, and all of a sudden his hands would go like, and if you talk to him to this day, you'll notice exactly what I'm talking about. But anything that's distracting, you just don't want to distract from who you are and what you're about. And these are the kinds of things that can do it. Touching is very, you know, it's personal. I mean, some people, when they meet you, they're going to want to give you a handshake like this. And while that wouldn't offend me necessarily, in some cultures and with some people who don't like to be touched, that's a bad thing. And guess what? I think the other bachelorette that's going to get thrown off is the one who doesn't like to hold hands in public and thinks it's gross to like cross fingers when you hold hands and stuff. She obviously does not like to be touched. And you're never going to know that, okay? It's not like people say, I like to be touched, go ahead, hug me. You know, you're just not going to know that. So you've got to be really careful about that. It could be the big difference. All right, Paul was talking about what do you talk about? You know, you meet these people, you have no idea who they are, where they're from, what they're about, what they do. What do you talk to these people about? So we're going to talk about little conversation basics. You've got to approach every conversation you have with anybody as an opportunity for success. People you don't even know can help you. People you meet in elevators, people you meet in airplanes, people you meet at church, people you meet, I don't know, at your health club. Everybody is an opportunity. You just will never know. The handshake, it's the first part of the conversation, so I'm sure you've heard this before, but you always want, I mean, again, huge part of the first impression. My dermatologist, I love him, and I will never change dermatologists. He's a great guy, but the first time I met him, he totally gave me the creeps. And it was all because of his handshake. I mean, he came up to me and he said, how do you do, Robin? My name is Dr. Mike Sell. Nice to meet you. And I was like, ew.
We have MBAs practice handshaking. It's that important. It really.
It's so important. And if you have clammy hands, and I don't know if you were with me the time I met some guy, and big guy with a big gold ring, he meets me, and he's like, how do you do? And I was like, ow! I mean, seriously, it hurt, and I went, ow! And he said, I'm really sorry, but I was like, yeah, whatever,
that's a good point.
Dude.
A lot of jewelry on your hand, sometimes it just accidentally kind of pinches a finger or something. It's one of the reasons why, somewhat go minimal with your jewelry.
Exactly. So just be careful about the handshake. It means a lot. It says a lot about you. Again, you want to be confident, but you don't want to be like that guy and super confident. And I don't know, it probably was meaningless, but was he trying to convey his power to me? I don't know. Was he trying to convey his importance to me or his position, or I'm somebody you have to take seriously because my handshake's like this? But also, Dr. Mike Sell, I don't know what this is about either, but I know he's very gentle and he's a very nice man, but unimpressive handshake. So it can really make or break your first impression. Basically, the handshake is this: open hand, once up, once down. And if you go once or twice, that's okay, but you don't want to be doing this, okay? You want to convey warmth and confidence, and you definitely want to make eye contact. Eye contact is huge, 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 huge. Okay, introductions. Go where the people are. We had a professional etiquette person come and talk to a group of MBA students one year, and she said, when you're at a cocktail reception, where's the best place to make friends? Anybody know? Say it. The bar. That's right. The bar. Guess what? Because that's where everybody is. Because most people feel really uncomfortable in social situations, so the first place they go is to the bar to get a drink. And if that's where the people are, that's where you have to go, even if you don't drink, even if you don't want to drink. That's where you got to go. If you want to meet people, you got to go where the people are. The people are not standing around in the corner. Or guess what? Maybe they are, but those are not the people you want to talk to, because they are not the people who convey confidence. They are not the people who have something to offer you. If they did, they'd be out there mingling with you, okay? The best places are at the food table or the bar, and if nobody introduces themselves to you, you take it upon yourself to introduce yourself to them. There's nothing wrong. Many times I've walked up to people and said, hi, my name's Robin. Or, hi, I'm Robin. I'm with Penn State. Who are you here with? I mean, it's as simple as that. It's not rude. It's not rude at all. But look for people who look friendly. I mean, obviously you don't want to look for the guy that with this kind of handshake, because he's probably, back there in the corner. But you definitely want to look for people who look open and approachable. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know the kind of people I'm talking about? If you saw Paul Poisson in a crowd, would you go talk to him? No, because he looks like a serial killer, but
I am.
He is a serial killer in his spare time.
Victim.
Oh, you're that guy, yeah.
Now, Rob, one thing I do want to add, though, is you have to kind of go in there with a mission and say, I'm failing my mission if I'm hanging here just talking to my buddies. You're not meeting anybody.
Oh,
and if you catch yourself doing that, and you say, I'm going in there and I want to come out of this with at least 3 or 4 people that I feel like I've really kind of met, and I feel like they're going to remember me.
Yeah.
And half the time, they're just as uncomfortable there, too.
Absolutely.
A lot of times they don't know anybody, and it's almost a relief to have somebody friendly come up, even at their kind of age and responsibility level, just to have somebody come up who kind of makes it easy. Nobody wants to be the ones kind of standing there all by themselves.
Yeah. And you know what? Just because we're older doesn't, or just because people are older doesn't mean they're better at this than you are. As Paul said, I mean, many people are still really uncomfortable. In fact, I had a conversation with our dean just a couple weeks ago, and he said, my mission is to really change the faculty staff functions at SMEAL. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, everybody huddles around the bar, and everybody talks to the people they know, okay? And they don't talk to the people they don't know. And I mean, that's true. Paul and I talk to each other because we know each other, but we definitely split up. I mean, we just kind of, hey, how's it going, blah, 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 and go off and talk to other people. I probably know more people in the college than most people do, as some people I've never seen before. You know, we go to a staff luncheon, I don't know who they are. I've never seen them, but that's because they're the people that are hiding out somewhere. If you're not out there making yourself visible, you're not going to know. But there are rules on how to introduce yourself. If you go to an event and there's a name tag, the proper place to put your name tag is above or below your right shoulder. Okay? Why? Anybody know why? So easy. Come on, finance majors. You're supposed to be the smartest kids in the college.
Think of line of sight.
Line of sight, yeah. When you shake your hand, that is naturally where your eye goes, right there. So you don't have to be doing this like, oh, hi, Paul, you know, kind of thing. And also, if you have or if you've got any, you know, if your name tag is so microscopic that you need, you know, a magnifying glass to see it, I would ask somebody if they could make you a new one. You know, can I just, do you have a marker or something, turn it around and make a Susie big so they can see you? Yeah. I think first and last name is fine, but you know, I sort of think it's overkill because it's hard to remember. I don't know how you feel about that.
I usually do first and last name.
Yeah, you know, hi, I'm Robin Stevens. But what you want to do is keep repeating the first name over and over, and then eventually you're going to exchange cards, and we'll talk about that. But you know, they're definitely going to need to remember or want to remember your first name first because. And I don't know how you guys are with names. I mean, some people are really good with names. You think I would be good with names, but I'm not. I'm great with, I will never forget your faces, ever. But, you know, sometimes, unless I see you 85 times, I'm not going to know that you're John Brozick. But, you know, if I don't see you that often, I remember your face. I know you, but your name eludes me. So just keep trying to repeat it. That's just one of the tricks. If you repeat the name, you know, not sort of after every sentence, oh, nice to meet you, Robin. Oh, how are you doing, Robin? Oh, so what's your mom do, Robin? You know, you don't want to go that way, but you do want to repeat it enough times so that it kind of sticks in your head. There are 4 rules for introductions, and these are guidelines. Nobody's going to call you on it if you don't do this properly, but there might be somebody who notices. They might not say anything. They might notice, and I doubt that it's going to be the make or break the deal thing, but if you can remember these, it's a really good thing. This is classic manners. You introduce older people first, women before men, same age, same gender, it doesn't matter who gets introduced first. And if there's a VIP with the title, like if the dean were here, we would obviously introduce the dean first. Okay, are there any questions about that? Yeah.
When it comes to like going up and introducing yourself to people,
yep.
Would you recommend us go to person? Should men try to go towards women? Should men try to go towards men? You know what I mean? Should you go towards the same gender in any way or the opposite when you're introducing yourself?
I think you go to the person who looks the most friendly. Yeah. You know, just to the person who looks the most friendly. I mean, I'll tell you a story. On Sunday, I went to the nail salon at the mall, or not the mall, at the Walmart near the mall. And a bunch of us were just sitting there waiting for our turns, and the lady next to me was first. She was very friendly. I sat down, introduced myself. We made small talk. I knew she was there first. She knew I was there second. People filtered in. Everybody kind of knew their place in line. Some people talked to each other. Most people didn't. And then these 2 women walk in, and they're kind of like, you know, and they walk right up to the cage because the place isn't open yet. And when the gates go up, they sign their names first. Yeah, I mean, and I guess, you know, I knew immediately when I saw those 2 people that that's what they were going to do. I mean, you can just tell. And I knew instinctively that the lady that sat down beside me was never going to say anything to them. Now, I don't want to tell you what happened the rest of the story. I had to scratch their eyes out. Yeah. But I did say something because that's my nature. I said, you can't put your names first. You weren't here first. That's just wrong. I mean, and I scratched their names out, and they called me names and, you know, stuff like that. But I mean, it was just wrong. But I knew. My point is that instantly, if you are a perceptive person and you're a people person, you're going to walk into the room and you're going to know who is okay to talk with, who's going to return the conversation, and who's going to be like, hello, I am a princess. What are you talking to me for?
Well, everybody's got different strategies. I've sometimes gone in looking for the people who kind of look uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I met the former president of Penn State that way, Joab Thomas, before Spanier.
Did you?
He was very introverted. I remember going into a meeting one time, and he was standing off in this big event, really all by himself. I figured, hey, this is great.
Yeah.
He's
Did you know
clearly
him?
an introvert. Yeah, I knew who he was, but I'd never met him before. I figured, here's my chance to meet the president of Penn State. I'm going to take advantage of it. And I could tell he was just happy to have somebody to talk to.
Yeah. I mean, even people in a position of power like that are not necessarily comfortable in those kinds of social situations. Introductions, the how. Hi, I'm Robin. How are you? Thank you for inviting me. I mean, it's as simple as that. The first 12 words, do you want to say thank you? Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank you for the opportunity to interview with you. If you are sitting, stand up. I don't care if you're a boy, you're a girl, I don't care. Stand up. Repeat the other person's name often. Again, it's supposed to be a trick. It's supposed to work. It doesn't necessarily work for me, but it might work some way. Instead of calling you Davy, I might call you Denny, or something will stick, but not everything. Follow up the introduction with a conversation starter. Like if it's a party for Bill Schreier and you happen to be there, oh, Bill and I went to Penn State. Bill was an alum of Penn State. That's why I'm here. I was invited as a former, a Penn State alum. It's as simple as that. Just very simple stuff. Again, we talked, I think it was just about the first or second session about the drill. Your 3-minute advertisement for who you are. This is a good place to use that. If you're going to be at the Wall Street Initiative, you're going to be talking to people who work on Wall Street or work in positions in New York where they have some influence. They're probably older alums. You'll meet some fairly new alums too, but most of these people are going to be in a position where they might be able to help you. So you want to tell them who you are. Hi, I'm Robin Stevens. I'm a 6th semester, what are you when you're 6th semester? Junior, in the Smeal College, and I'm here as part of the Wall Street Boot Camp group. We've attended certain sessions, we've gotten certified, and now we're here networking. It's a great opportunity. Thanks for having us. Thanks for coming. It's a pleasure to meet you, kind of thing. You want to talk a little bit about your current or your past experiences. I'm a member of the Penn State Investment Association, or I recently joined the Nittany Lion Fund, or was elected as president, or whatever it happens to be. And I'm really, right now, I'm heading toward a career in sales and trading at a major investment firm. That's just kind of what you want to do. Do you have sort of an example?
Well, the other thing I would want to reinforce is almost all the studies on what other people remember, whether it's advertising, listening to speeches, is most people are going to probably retain 3 things, kind of 3 key elements. So in speech comm, there's kind of the famous 3-point speech. Keep it kind of 3 key points. And that's something I hear over and over again from people who kind of study this is think about, not that this is wrong, this is a good format, but also think about, and it's kind of an advertising theory, what are kind of the 3 things you want to kind of have them thinking about you when you walk away? And they got to be kind of major themes, not that, oh, I remember Robin, she was born in Bellefonte. Usually you want it something to do with the business that you want to get into.
Right.
What is it about you that's going to kind of have them thinking about you, hopefully in the future, that maybe that's going to lead to a follow-up conversation or an interview or something. That
you're interested in investment banking, you did an internship at Goldman Sachs. I mean, that's the kind of thing they're going to remember. Yeah, because most of these people, you're giving them the information because you want them to be able to help you or use it somehow. When I'm at one of these situations, and I see it as my mission to help people connect with each other. Like if I will be at the Wall Street Initiative, as will Paul, and since we know you, we will come to you and we will say, you got to meet this person. I want you to meet this person, or I'll bring this person over to you and say, this is Susie. She wants to be in sales and trading. She did an internship this summer with J.P. Morgan. She's great. Talk to her. She's fabulous. And then that's where you get the opportunity to connect and form a relationship and have a real conversation. And I've had many alums write to me after these events and say, I met some great students. I met some really polished students, And if you can be one of those students and they remember you, you've got yourself in a good position. Not really, you know, even though I consider myself, you know, sort of a social butterfly, there are awkward moments. There are definitely moments where you're going to think the person is the friendliest person in the room, and they're going to be like, yeah, whatever. They're just not going to want to give you the time of day, and you're not going to know. It might not be anything you said or you did. It might be that they just have something on their mind. Could be anything. Maybe you didn't understand the name. So what do when that happens? You didn't understand somebody's name. And truthfully, this happens to me a lot with international students. I don't know the language, and I'm a very upfront person, and I'm the kind of person that's going to say, could you repeat that for me? And then I'll repeat it because I think it's respectful to pronounce somebody's name correctly. I don't know if international students find that offensive, but I think, in my view, it's respectful to say, I'm sorry, I didn't understand your name. I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the name.
Or frame it really positively. I just want to make sure I've got your name right.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of showing you care.
Yeah.
You know, who's going to be offended by that? That's somebody who actually cares about them and wants to make sure they get their name right.
That's right. What if you forget their name? What if you see them at another event and you know it and you forget their name? You know, oh, this is a trick Peggy Newman taught us. She said, just step back and say, have you two met? And then they introduce each other. Okay, oh, I'm Susan, or I'm Paul. I'm Robin, I'm Paul. And this person's out of it totally. So they're not stuck in the awkward position of having to introduce these two people. They get them to introduce themselves. And you get to remember who they both are. What if you only remember one name? And then you step back and say, have you met Bill? Okay, and this definitely happens. This happens so often, you'll have no idea. And you know what? I find most people, really, they're not offended by it at all. And I will often say, I'm so sorry, I'm so bad with names. I know you. And I'll say, I know you, I saw you last week at the blah, 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 blah. So they know I'm not a complete dunce, but I'm just blanking on your name. You know, it's embarrassing and it's awkward, but most people don't seem to mind. They'd rather that you call them by their correct name than by a different name. So then it becomes awkward for them because they have to say, my name's not Susie, okay, it's Robin. So it becomes awkward for them. The name game, you never give a person a nickname unless they give you their permission. This young man that came down today, his mother introduced me as Mrs. Stevens, which I'm not Mrs. Stevens. I'm Mrs. Carlin, but I kept my maiden name, so it's Ms. Stevens. But I'm not into the title stuff, so I just say, just call me Robin. And that's okay. He can call me Robin. I've given him permission. You got any stuff on the nicknames? If your name's Barbara, you know, and often I say, would you prefer to be called Barbara or Barb, or do you have a nickname? If you don't know, you don't want to presume, but it's okay to ask. Shake hands and repeat the name. Oh, hi, Paul, nice to meet you. And then try to use the name. We said this before, as often as you can. And give other people the gift of your name. If you walk up to somebody and you know, obviously, you know them, and they seem uncomfortable, just say, hi, Robin, remember we met at the blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, Robin, nice to see you again. It's up to you to assume the burden of comfort. Okay, any questions about this? It's pretty easy stuff. Small talk. Take the risk of talking to someone new. Be the first person to say hello. Again, don't wait for these people at the Wall Street Initiative or any other cocktail reception or reception of any kind to be like pouncing on you. It is incumbent on you to make the contacts. And I know that this is hard, so make sure that you're sincere and that you treat everybody like they're the most important and only person in the room. I can tell you there's nothing more off-putting for me than when I'm standing there talking to somebody at a reception and they're going like this, yeah. Yeah, oh, if you don't mind, I'm just going to go over and get it. Yeah. So you know they're not really paying attention to you. Treat them like they are the only person in the room. Ask open-ended questions. You know the difference between an open-ended and a closed question, or an open-ended and a closed question, closed-ended question. Open-ended questions, you have to give an answer to. It's how's this? What did you think about that? It's not a yes or a no. It doesn't have a yes or a no answer. Because if you ask a closed-ended question and the answer is yes, then that's the end of the conversation. Or no, end of conversation. And the idea is to keep the conversation going, at least for a little while. So what Paul said before was think of something that you might have in common. You know, maybe it's the football game. And I'll tell you what, most people talk about the weather. No matter where you go, people always talk about the weather. And if that's the way you have to start out your conversation, no matter. At least you're starting a conversation.
I'm going to just throw a contrary opinion in there. You're right. You can always fall back on that.
Yeah.
But because so many people talk about the weather,
Don't start.
well, it makes you very easily forgettable.
Yeah.
Because you may be the third person that night who's talked about the weather. So try to avoid the weather.
Exactly. But if you, I mean, really, you don't want to say you're the third person tonight that's talked about the weather and I want to talk about something different because I'm socially adept more than you. But yeah, the weather, it's something everybody knows about, something everybody experiences every day, boring, but you can always fall back on it. Do your homework. Again, we talk to you all the time. Know the business. Know the people you're talking about. Know who is going to be at the party. Have an agenda. John knows exactly what I'm talking. When John went to New York, I hate to keep talking about John, but I just know him really well. When he went to he wanted to go to New York over Thanksgiving. He comes into my office and says, "Here, I have a strategy. I just wanted to see, check it out with you, see what you think." And he had this whole, it was a big spreadsheet, different colors and times and an agenda and a schedule and who he was going to meet and what their title was. But that's the way you do it. You don't want to just go like, "I'm going to New York," and whip out the map and start like, "Where's Goldman Sachs? Who do I talk? I'll call Robin. I'm at Goldman Sachs. Who should I talk to? Do you know anybody?" That's not the way to do it. You've got to be prepared and got to do your homework. So you also want to know somewhat, the banks that are going to be represented, maybe the positions of the people at the banks that are going to be there, so that the area that they work in, so that you'll have some knowledge of what to talk about, talking about the business. Show interest. Everybody likes somebody who wants to know more about them. I mean, frankly, this is not unlike dating. You meet people, you have similar interests, you like it when someone shows an interest in you that makes you think maybe we could go out on another date. I really enjoyed talking to this person because they enjoyed talking to me and they asked a lot of questions about me and they listened to me. Everybody likes to talk about themselves and everybody likes to be talked to. So if you can just remember these common sense things. And I do think, and I talked about this earlier, you can really walk into a room and you can tell the people who have a genuine interest in other people. You can tell people who are people. And you can tell the people who are aloof. Do be one of those people who's approachable and friendly and genuine. Don't talk. I always say this. I talk about it on your resume. Do not talk about sex, religion, or politics. And those are my rules. I don't know how strongly Paul feels about that. But my feeling is that you will never understand the bias of the person that you're talking to unless they know somebody else and somebody else knows somebody else and you found out. But unless you're really close friends with them, you're not going to understand. You may be a big Obama supporter and they may be a huge McCain supporter or whatever. And you don't want that to be the reason they want to walk away and look for somebody who has more in common with them. Yeah?
If you have like inside information, so to speak, on the person,
Yeah.
can you use that to your advantage, like playing off their, say, political beliefs about a current election?
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
I guess I'd be careful.
Genuine.
I was just about to say, it depends on the sincerity of it.
If you're like Obama, you're not going to go say like McCain.
Yeah. Well, I think any conversation, as long as it's genuine, if you have inside information and you know that person is a big Obama supporter and you are too, and that's something you have in common and could get excited talking about, and maybe but you know what? It's just tricky. Sometimes it's tricky, and they may be thinking, this kid really. I mean, in most social situations, you don't approach somebody and talk about these things. Yeah.
Is there a difference between politics and public policy, like talking about new regulatory initiatives or things that clearly are political in nature, but you don't necessarily take a side?
No, I think there's a difference there. In fact, it can be, very important, particularly down on Wall Street, because right now there's a lot of people trying to figure out where's the market going to move if Hillary's in the White House, if Obama's in the White House, if McCain's in the White House. I mean, simple things like what's going to happen to energy stocks depending on Republican or Democrat.
Yeah.
I mean, if what some of the Democrats say is true, as far as possibly taxing excess profits on the energy companies, things like that, yeah, it's going to affect the stock.
Yeah.
So in that sense, if it's business, they look for people who are kind of thinking that way. Where's the market
and who
moving?
Have a knowledge, yeah, who have a knowledge and a curiosity about that.
I mean, we hear that time and time again from our alums is, you just have to be kind of up on reading The Economist, Wall Street Journal, Fortune Business Week.
When Joe said
and
that,
thinking about, thinking about those kinds of issues.
You have to be aware. You have to be aware. But again, I mean, I've been at too many events where somebody gets up and they're speaking and they're uncomfortable and they say something that's totally, in another situation may not be totally inappropriate, but it's totally inappropriate. I'm thinking of one particular time when somebody was conveying a story. It was a bank. Were you there? I remember telling you about it. I was at this banquet and it was a reception. There were students there and this person was being honored and his parents were there. And at the end, just as he had a beautiful thank you speech, and at the very end, he told this story, which you thought was going to have a really nice ending about he and his wife were driving down the street and they passed a cemetery and she said to him, how would you like to be remembered? And and he's telling the story to this group of people. His mom was there, all these people there, and he says, I'd like to be remembered as an effing nice guy, but he didn't say effing, okay? The dean was there, I was there, parents were there, students were there, and if we were at the bar and, had a couple glasses of wine or something and he said, I'd like to be remembered as an effing nice person, he didn't have to say that at that particular, but that totally colored the entire evening. I'm still talking about it, it had to be 10 years ago, but I'll never forget it as being one of those classic examples of, man, one word or one thought or one idea can just wreck. Be just a train wreck. So just, be thinking about that. Obviously, ask questions about the company. That's, kind of what you're talking about. And get people to talk about themselves. I mean, obviously, I like to tell stories about myself because I tell them to you all the time. But people like to talk to other people about themselves. Do be positive. Don't be negative. I mean, Paul and I talked about this one student. I'll just never forget. I can't ever remember. I bet you don't either. Ever remember talking to this kid when the first words out of his mouth were just something negative. How you doing? Not too well. Hey, what about the game? It sucked. No matter what, it just was like, every time you talked to him, you kind of went, hey, and then you went, yeah, right. So just remember that. Smile, convey confidence, interest, enthusiasm, provide a lead-in. If this conversation isn't going anywhere, or you're uncomfortable, you be the person to take the lead. Have your 30-second drill ready. Don't make it be the first time that you've ever done it. And again, this is for interviews too. Make sure you have a couple little vignettes of, classic moments in your life where you were challenged or you felt defeated or it was your greatest accomplishment or something that you can talk about that was really significant or humorous or interesting. Make sure you listen. That's one of the things that makes somebody a brilliant conversationalist is that they listen to you and they reflect back on what you're talking about. And again, if you feel like you're being listened to, you want to talk. And the body language is smile, make eye contact, nod, lean in. Don't interrupt people. It's so annoying. I can't even tell you. Let somebody finish their thought. Paraphrase if you have to. If you're not quite sure what the person said, repeat it, paraphrase a little bit. Keep your distance. We say one handshake away is safe in our culture. If you do get close for some reason, if it's a really crowded room, make sure you turn your body to the side and turn your head to face the person so that you're not, like as Jerry Seinfeld would say, a close talker. Anybody watch Flava Flav? Yeah? Remember the time Flava Flav told that girl that she had really bad breath? Remember that? Remember that time? Anyway, it was funny. Okay, so what do you do if you're having a conversation with, I know you guys all want to leave, and it's like, okay, this is like a conversation that you really don't want to have anymore, so how do we get out of here without Robin being offended? Well, you just be polite and say, excuse me, I have to say hello to somebody. Make sure you're just polite. You know, thanks, it's been great talking to you. If you don't mind, I'm gonna try to work the room. I'd like to meet some other people tonight. People understand that. I enjoyed meeting you. Definitely move on if you're getting the signal that these people are bored. Move on. You don't want to monopolize someone's time. So you know, if you're at a thing like the Wall Street Initiative or some sort of networking event, that everybody's there to meet people. So don't. I can remember having a reception at my house for the next CEO kids. It's kind of part of the selection process. You know, come to my house and we see how you network with other people. And one guy, the only reason nobody wanted him to be in the competition was because he saw one guy that he liked and he monopolized his time the entire evening and he didn't make an effort to meet anybody else. And for that reason, we didn't select him. So it really it is a gift. It's a gift and it's a skill. So try to become good at it. Don't ever leave somebody standing alone. If you see that there's nobody else around that wants to talk to them, force yourself to make a conversation. Introduce them to somebody else or say, hey, I'm really hungry or I want to get a drink. Would you like to come with me? Just be polite. These are turn-offs. Don't touch your hair, your nose, your eyes, or other people. Don't put your hands, this body language, don't put your hands in your pockets or behind your back. Keep your hands above board. It says you're confident and attentive. Don't touch other people. You don't want to say things like, how's your wife, how's your job, what's new and exciting, because they might have just got divorced, their wife might have just have left, they might have lost their job. These are things, when people say, hey, what's new and exciting, one of my doctors always says, hey, where have you been lately? Rob loves to hear my travel stories. So it's like, where have you been? And I really have to stop and think, like, where have I been exciting, And sometimes it just makes you feel like your life is not that exciting. So those kinds of questions can be dangerous. To combat mingling phobia, decide on an arrival and a departure time. Create an itinerary like John did. Decide who you're going to talk to, what you're going to say, when you're going to be where. Admit that you don't know anybody. That's okay. It's okay to say, I know no one at this event. You're the only person, so far you're the only person I've met. And introduce yourself. And recognize, again, this is the same thing for interviews. Everybody who comes to the interview is just as nervous as you are. So, and the interviewers know that. So try to relax and just try to say, I'm not really, the only thing that makes me different from anybody else at this point is that I really want this job and I have done my homework. And I'm really geared for it. Give yourself a break. Talk to friends. It is okay. Like the dean doesn't want Paul and I to be talking to each other at the 2 or 3 hour reception the entire time. I can understand why he wants us to mingle and talk to other people. But it is okay, if this is a stressful situation, to go touch base like Paul and I often do at events. We'll just touch base and say, hey, just met this great person, or you should talk to this person. Try to learn one new thing at every event you go to. And think of these people, again, don't be intimidated by their position, their looks, their status, their wealth. Don't be intimidated by any of this. Think of them as a recruiter, not the recruiter, or this is a job, not the job. Because if it's the job or the recruiter, you're putting way too much pressure on yourself, and it is going to be a stressful situation. Don't be the last one to leave. And Paul and I have been the last ones to leave a few times.
That's our job. And
that's our job. But, yeah, try not to be the last one to leave if it's not your job to do that. And definitely have fun. Above all, these are social situations. They're meant to be lively. They're meant to be fun. But for you, there is a purpose. There is a purpose there. And you are creating an impression, and you are part of the Smil brand. Everything you say, everything you do is a reflection of the brand. So obviously, we want you to try to be prepared for these kinds of situations. Anybody have any, munching and mingling. A couple quick things. If you're at a reception where there's food, play it safe. Never drink more than your host. I will post these, by the way. Wine glasses are held by the stem, and you definitely want to wipe your fingers before the handshake. Always drink beer from the glass. If you're in an event like this, you never want to drink beer from the bottle. That's okay if you're with your friends, but otherwise not so good. Napkin, plate, and glass by the stem. You can hold them all together. You can put the plate here, the stem here and the napkin, and you can hold them all in one hand, but you want to make it your left hand so that you have your right hand free to shake hands. So I don't have anything to demonstrate, but I've seen it done. Ice cubes are not an edible part of the beverage, okay? Could someone tell my husband that? Because it's so annoying, and I have to sit with him in a car tonight for 2.5 hours, and he's going to crunch ice the whole time. It's going to drive me crazy. Eating. Eat first, okay? When you go to one of these situations, don't go starving, first of all, but, you know, you are going to eat. Everybody's going to munch, but make sure that you go and you eat first and then do your business later. It's so much easier if you're not trying to maneuver, you know, a popover, or what do they call those things, poppers, or the things with the cheese, the peppers with the cheese, and what are they called?
Yeah, poppers.
Poppers? Yeah. And you're trying to talk to somebody, you're trying to make an impression with Mr. Wall Street banker, and this cheese is hanging out of the popper, and you're trying to catch it. It's just not a good thing. Use a plate, never stand. Never stand and pick at get a plate, put your stuff on the plate, and never, by any means, should you pull up a chair to the table and get a fork and start eating off the serving chair. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it happen. Yeah, don't do that. No double dipping. You know what double dipping is? It's when you take a bite of the taco and then you put the taco back into the dip to get more salsa, okay? And then you put it back in your mouth and then you dip it again. That's called double dipping, and it's gross. And it's probably how my brother got the whatever, the MRSA. Put sauces on the plate and dip your stuff into them. It's just safer that way. I would, if you're ordering something, or even if you're a reception, I would not eat anything with cheese or grease, or like, obviously, wings are out, poppers are out. Most of the things they serve at receptions are out. Don't talk with food in your mouth, obviously. Remove anything inedible. If you get something in there and it's gristle or something, it's okay to sort of take it out with your 2 fingers and kind of put it back on the plate, but do it very discreetly. You don't want to spit it. Eat slowly, taking bites only large enough to chew comfortably and quietly. I know this is a challenge for some people, but...
Let me add something that makes life real easy. Men or women, buy a cloth handkerchief and just put it in a pocket. You know how many times I've seen people kind of get themselves into trouble because they have to sneeze?
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, sometimes you can't control how you sneeze, and now you're standing there, and all the people around you are like, I'm not shaking that person's hand. Or you bite down on something, and you just happen to get the thing that has a piece of bone in it. And what are you going to do, you know? And just to be able to pull something like that out just makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Do they even sell those anymore?
Oh, yeah. Go to Macy's or something.
The old people's store. Excuse yourself to blow your nose. If you're ravenous, eat first, mingle later, cough and sneeze, just as Paul just demonstrated. And that's it. Robin's top 10 tips. I didn't do this slide, so I'm not sure what they are.
You have to
so
guess.
Your homework this time is to figure out what my top 10 tips were. No, we're going to post this on Angel. I'm probably not going to do it until next week because I'm leaving tonight to go to Oregon, and I'll be there for a week. We are now going to post the podcast for the previous sessions, so if you have access to Angel, and only those of you who've attended consistently will have access, so you'll be able to see all the podcasts. You can watch them as many times as you want to. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do the certificate. Paul and Randy and I are going to talk about that, but we'll let you know. You're on the Angel group list, and you'll still have access to that. We're going to keep that live. So if I need to communicate with you over the summer, that's how I'll do it. If you need to communicate with me, certainly just send me an email if you have any questions.
I've got a quick question. How many of you are not seniors who are not about to graduate? Good, so most of you. I just want to throw a couple things.
Good.
This is so important. I mean, time after time when we hear stories about how people got jobs, people put too much emphasis on the interview and not enough emphasis on the networking that oftentimes leads to a successful interview, or turning success into not just one interview, but getting multiple interviews with companies. And so many of our alums somewhat gauge how serious they are going to be in dealing with you on who your network is. I mean, you sometimes get that question, who else are you talking to?
Oh, yeah.
because so many of them know each other. They're going to these same events that Robin and I go to, and or there's this chain of help that goes on, and kind of people pass the help along every year, and people get connected. So this summer, you should already be thinking about and hitting like the alumni database.
Yep.
I don't know where you're going to be this summer, but it's a great opportunity to drop somebody a note. If you're in New York or Philly or Pittsburgh, they are all financial centers.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter where you're at, if you're in Pittsburgh, there's people at Mellon, PNC that you could potentially say, hey, I'd like to meet you for lunch, and just talk a little bit about what you do. Even if you're not working in a financial company this summer, take advantage of being in that same place. Certainly in New York, there's all kinds of opportunities to do that. And then even internal networking. If you are doing an internship this summer at a financial services firm, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from a boss was, you're the new person.
Yeah.
Everybody likes to meet the new person. Hi, I'm Paul. I just landed here from Penn State. I'm going to be here for the summer. Well, one thing people do is they immediately fall into habits. They go to lunch every day with the same group of people, and you only get to know those 4 or 5, whatever people in your unit. Just like we're talking here, make it a point at least once or twice a week, if there is a cafeteria or someplace where people collect to eat, to just plop yourself down at a table where you don't know a soul and take advantage of being the new person and introduce yourself, and then do the same thing. Hey, I'm new here. I'm just kind of learning about the place. What is it that you do? What do you do over in the derivatives department or whatever it is?
And you know what I think, a classic story, anybody know Pete Gotti? Well, Pete, when we met Dan, the head of HR, and even Dan recognized this, but when Pete got a job in the back office, and he networked his way to the front office for full time. He got a back office internship, networked his way to the front office for a full-time offer. And Paul and I were in New York meeting with the director of HR, and even he said Pete Gotti was great, man. He was a great representative of the Smeal College. He really went out of his way to meet people. He really impressed the socks off a lot of people. And a lot of it is because he had great networking skills. And he knew what he wanted, and he wanted to go after it. And he was aggressive enough to be, approach people in a situation like that and to learn as much as he could. I mean, for God's sakes, take advantage of it while you're there. I mean, you're there at the bank. You're working there. And I don't even care if you're in New York. You're in New York. You know how hard it is to get from New York to from Pennsylvania to New York? If you're in the city, make opportunities, create opportunities for yourself. And something that I've sort of discovered or just sort of noticed when we meet, Paul and I go on a lot of business trips together, a lot of them in New York. These people are really busy. So it's a nice idea to ask them to lunch, and we do. We always invite them to, hey, you want to go do breakfast, you want to go do lunch, you want to have dinner. But a lot of times people will say, can we meet for a cup of coffee? Can we just meet you at the corner Starbucks? And you know what? Most of the time, they're thinking, look, I don't really know these people. I don't know what they want to talk about. This could be a 10-minute conversation. I have a lot of stuff to do. It's not like Paul and I instantly go, hey, it's Robin Stevens and Paul Poissant, and everybody goes, hooray, come on, we want to go for dinner with you guys. You're so much fun. It's not always that way for us either, but I think a lot of times people are thinking it's going to be a 10-minute conversation, and it turns into a 2-hour, hey, we're having a great time, isn't this great? So a cup of coffee is a little less intimidating than breakfast or lunch. So if you just want to, if you're more comfortable with that, they probably will be too.
And be a little, you got to be careful. You don't want to ever embarrass yourself or do something awkward, but be a little bit of a risk taker too. I've heard so many great stories where one of our interns ended up wrangling a lunch with the CEO of a company just by asking, hey, I'm new here, I'm the intern. I don't know if you do lunches with interns, but I'd love to, love to join you someday if you're open to that.
Here's a great story. Remember this? Jonathan Bora, he used to be my grad assistant. He, do you remember the story?
Yeah. Well, I remember John.
He met with what was the guy's, he was the...
American Express? Which one?
Yeah, John Bora, American Express. He met with somebody, the CEO, is there a CEO of the New York Stock Exchange? Or it used to be.
Yeah.
Some big shot. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, he got in trouble recently.
Yeah, right. John met him in the locker room at the club where they worked out together. And he said, oh, hi, I recognize you from the, New York Stock Exchange, because he's always on TV. And he goes, yeah, I'm, so-and-so and such, who are you? And he's like, oh, I'm a Penn State student, I'm interning at, blah, 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 blah. And this is what I'm interested in. They're talking in the locker room. The two guys are standing there wearing towels, talking to each other. One's a CEO, one's an intern from Penn State, and the next thing you know, Jonathan's got an interview. So, I mean, I'm just trying to tell you that it's just not as hard as it seems like it is. And it can happen in the most unconventional of places, in the most unconventional of ways. So, try not to be intimidated. It's a good opportunity.
Well, that's the thing I always am afraid of. When we throw all these rules up here, sometimes people go, oh, that's too much to remember. I'm not even going to try it. I'm so afraid of making a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger mistake. Because, boy, no one's going to remember if you don't introduce yourself. So, hey, the worst that happens is so you have a little awkward moment. But you just got to kind of get out there and do it. And you'll get better at it. It's like anything else. The more you do it, you may make a mistake or two, and hopefully we'll minimize, a minor mistake rather than a major mistake by looking at some of these things. But
I bet nobody's had a more awkward moment than I did on St. Patrick's Day at this session. Remember? Was it St. Patrick's Day? How many of you were here when the weird? Yeah. Talk about an awkward moment. Yeah. So with that, does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Just a quick question. I know a lot of us aren't 21, and we do have internships this summer and like at the bar situation, and if somebody offers you a drink, you're obviously not going to get drunk.
Right.
But if somebody offers you a drink, should you deny it and say you're not 21, or should we accept it?
Is it legal to drink when you're not 21 in New York?
No.
Yeah, I would deny. I mean, you do not want to do anything that would appear to be, and it could be a trick. If you're, maybe they want to see if you're doing something inappropriate, unethical. It, could be.
Don't put yourself or the guest in a position where it could be embarrassing.
Yeah.
Because what would happen if all of a sudden they carded you?
Yeah.
And
then you weren't.
You want to be remembered that way?
Yeah.
Or worse, if that person bought the drink for you and now they're accused of buying a minor a drink.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to say I'm not, thank you so much for offering, but I'm not 21. Or you can say, yeah, I'll have a Virgin Bloody Mary or something. But you know what? Never for 1 second when you are talking with somebody or you're at an event like this, you are being interviewed. It is part of the interview process. So never for 1 second should you think that you can totally let your guard down and be really comfortable in these situations, because you are, again, it's part of the process. Definitely part of the process. You're being looked at and critiqued with every movement, every word. So that's an excellent question. Glad you answered that.
Question
Asked that.
Yeah.
Going to get the list?
Yeah.
The list. We'll have to clean the list up because a lot of people lost their jobs that were on the list. So I have to clean the list up, but you'll be getting it. I would say, obviously not this week because I'm not going to be here. Give me a week to catch up. Probably early June, I would say. By the time most of you are starting your internships. And if for some reason you don't get it, make sure you let me know. Okay, if you don't hear from me by, say, June 1st, let me know. And I'll be able to give you a better, oh, it's coming, or I sent it, or it's not coming for another week, or whatever. Okay? Okay, cool. Good. Well, I want to thank you all for being so loyal to the course, and it's the first time we did it, so you were guinea pigs. And although we haven't done an evaluation, maybe I'll put one up on Angel. And if you have any suggestions for other topics, were there things that you would like us to have covered that we didn't cover? Would you like to see more Wall Street people? I mean, certainly we would, and the invitation was extended, but it's really hard for those people to get here. So, but any suggestions about what you learned or you didn't learn, what you liked, what you didn't like, the format, anything, we're open to suggestions. First time we did it, we kind of winged it. We didn't have much preparation at all. So we just decided we were going to do it, and we just did it. So I hope you got something out of it. But you definitely are branded as the Wall Street Boot Camp Initiative Group, and these people that are on the list will be getting a list of who you are, and they will know that you have our blessing, and they will probably not talk to anybody that isn't on this list. So that's kind of the way they wanted it. So that's why we're doing it. So if you thought this was worthwhile and you know people that are interested in doing Wall Street, we haven't come up with the dates and gotten the room assignments and stuff like that for the fall yet, but I'm fairly certain we're going to do it again in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, we're kicking around ideas even about, maybe putting your names out on a website, kind of like, a graduation class list or something.
Yeah.
That way you
maybe
can
your
even
resume.
refer people
Don't know
to that.
quite how we're going to do it. Yeah. That only the people on that list have access to. Okay? So we'll be putting an evaluation out there. This stuff will all be up on the web. Ian will make sure of that. So good luck with your summers. Have a great summer. Hope to look forward to talking to you when you get back. See you later. Oh, thank you.